So thank you again, everybody, for joining us this evening. Today we have a very nice topic to discuss. We're going to speak about two very important personalities in the Gaudiya Vaishnava line, Sri Swarup Damodar Goswami and Sri Ramananda Rai, very confidential associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I pray for all your blessings to do justice to this class. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So to begin with, we'll read the verse from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 9, 633. Kim punar brahmanah punya bhakta rajarshayastata anityam asukam lokam imam prapya tajasvamam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. How much more this is so of the righteous Brahmanas, the devotees and saintly kings. Therefore, having come to this temporary miserable world, engage in loving service unto me. Purport. In this material world, there are classifications of people, but after all, this world is not a happy place for anyone. It is clearly stated here, Anityam Asukam Lokam. This world is temporary and full of miseries, not habitable for any sane gentleman. This world is declared by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be temporary and full of miseries. Some philosophers, especially Mayavadi philosophers, say that this world is false, but we can understand from Bhagavad Gita that the world is not false, it is temporary. There is a difference between temporary and false. This world is temporary, but there is another world which is eternal. This world is miserable, but the other world is eternal and blissful. Arjuna was born in a saintly royal family. To him also the Lord says, "Take to my devotional service and come quickly back to Godhead, back home." No one should remain in this temporary world full as it is with miseries. Everyone should attach himself to the bosom of the Supreme Personality of Godhead so that he can be eternally happy. The devotional service of the Supreme Lord is the only process by which all problems of all classes of men can be solved. Everyone should therefore take to Krishna consciousness and make his life perfect. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamahyam Dati Swapantikam Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishnapristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastrati Deshadari. So Krishna is saying that taking to devotional service will free one of the temporary miserable material world. But this knowledge of devotional service is not as straightforward as just picking up the Bhagavad Gita and reading a chapter on it. As Srila Prabhupada is pointing out, there are other people on spiritual paths who understand that this material world is not as it should be. Whether they believe it's false or whether they understand it's temporary. Those who walk spiritual paths realize that this material world is not any place that they should remain in. And so there is a drive to get out of it. Even in the modern day, people understand that there is something as heaven or hell, and they need to work towards, achieving that higher destination, in particular, rather than trying to get to the lower destination. But how to do it effectively and, of course, quickly is where the problem comes in. Devotional service is actually spoken of in many places in Bhagavad Gita. And this chapter in particular, chapter 9, is known as the most confidential knowledge because it is explaining Bhagavad Gita. But the interesting thing because it's explaining devotional service. But the most interesting thing about it is that probably thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people have been exposed to Bhagavad Gita across the centuries. People within the Indian subcontinent, and then, of course, Bhagavad Gita has been spread throughout the world now by the great efforts of Srila Prabhupada. But even before that, as Srila Prabhupada mentioned in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita, there were many editions of Bhagavad Gita already available in the West. So with such a large amount of people reading Bhagavad Gita, the proportion of those who have taken to devotional service is very small. So it means that there must be something more to just picking up this book and just reading this chapter. It means that this knowledge is so confidential that even if you're able to read it. Actually understanding its substance and taking to devotional service is still not possible. And that's something that's very interesting, because if you pick up a material book on, sorry, a book of material knowledge, something on gardening or sewing, with some reasonable success, you'll be able to create a beautiful garden or so. It's a matter of reading the book. But with devotional service, it's not like that. And Krishna explains in the 7th chapter, Manushyanam sahasreshu kashyatirthi siddhaye yatatam abhisiddhanam kashin vetimam tatpataha. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection. And out of all of those who achieve perfection, hardly one knows the truth. So it's really not easy to get to the substance of this chapter, to get to the substance of this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, which is devotional service. To actually be able to take to devotional service means having faith in Krishna, having faith that even if we don't understand fully what his words are in the beginning, that by following these practices, and by associating with the right personalities within Mira-san's path, by following the rules with heart, not for the sake of it, by rendering service with love, even if it's not pure love in the beginning, but at least some feeling for Krishna that can grow into love. This is how we can get more and more understanding of what this chapter holds, what the real message of Bhagavad Gita is, and we get closer to knowing Krishna in truth. So other people are going to take to different processes and hopefully get to devotional service eventually, but there isn't any guarantee about it. And to save them all the trouble, our glorious Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu has appeared in order to make devotional service more accessible, more understandable, by his personal example, by the examples of all the wonderful personalities that came with him. On the importance of devotional service, it's very interesting that when he had that seminal conversation with Ramananda Rai that is detailed in the 8th chapter of the Madhya Leela of Caitanya Charitamrita, the Lord actually made his feelings about all these other paths that could potentially lead to devotional service but are not guaranteed. He actually made his thoughts known. So he started by asking Ramananda Rai, what is the goal of life? And Ramananda Rai started describing things like Varnashram Dharma, and he went through the different other aspects of self-realization that people may take to Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. And with each one that Ramananda Rai mentioned, Lord Chaitanya rejected it. And one may think, but in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna was mentioning all these processes as viable ways to attain the Supreme. So we understand that as Krishna, the Lord was not obliged to explain his highest loving sentiments of devotional service. He was actually giving us an overview of the different ways in which we can reach him. And although the chapters on devotional service are mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, compared to how they're elaborated on, how devotional service is elaborated on in the activities of Lord Chaitanya, teachings of his disciples, the 6 Goswamis, and of course in his biographies, especially the Caitanya Charitamrita, the Bhagavad Gita's explanation of devotional service is just the beginning. And in the conversation with Ramananda Rai, which is where the Lord actually begins to reveal his inner motive for appearing, because we know he had an external reason, internal reason. But there he starts to really reveal his internal motivation, because the more he rejects all these processes, these other processes of self-realization, the more he's guiding Ramananda Rai to bring him to that point where Ramananda Rai will tell him that the highest method, the highest goal of life is to love Krishna the way Srimati Radharani does. This is what Lord Chaitanya came to experience. This is something that he could never speak about when he was on the planet as Krishna. Firstly, because the time and the place of speaking Bhagavad Gita, for example, was not appropriate, and he himself had not tasted that sweetness. He only did it when he appeared as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, in order for the Lord to himself relish these words, he had to take the association of special devotees like Ramananda Rai and Swarup Damodar. So for us, we understand then just merely reading these words of Bhagavad Gita is not enough. Sometimes even just hearing speakers speak about it may not be enough. But to sit and discuss these topics with devotees that we have a deep connection with, this will help us to take our understanding of this knowledge of Vedic scriptures, whether it's Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, to take it to a deeper level that we can um, understand that there are many layers to what Krishna is saying. If we just look at it superficially, then we'll just get the understanding that ordinary persons might do, just reading Bhagavad Gita as any book. But in the association of devotees, and especially thinking about how there's so many, how is it possible that there's so many commentaries on a single verse in Bhagavad Gita by different writers in the Society Succession? It's simply because there's so many layers, so many meanings that we can derive from Krishna's words, especially if it's appreciated in the association of devotees. So we can emphasize this very much because Lord Chaitanya himself did with Ramananda Rai, with Swarup Damodar Goswami, with many of his other associates. He would read the scriptures and relish the scriptures and dive more and more into all the meanings of the scriptures. So the Supreme Lord himself is setting this example for us. So Lord Chaitanya's mission, we mentioned just now, his external mission was to teach us about devotional service practically. If even after reading the 9th chapter, people were not able to understand more about devotional service than what they could just gain from just superficially reading it, then they got that example from the life of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Lord was showing us that there's no other process that can get us out of this physical material world faster. And he particularly showed us that we can relish love for Krishna in these different personal rasas. And by developing those relationships with the Lord, either in a neutral position as the associates of his that are cows, his flute, and trees, for example, as a servant of his, what is called Dasya Ras, in the relationship of friendship, Sakya Ras, in parental love for him, Vatsalya Ras, and in Madhurya Ras, which is the love of the gopis, conjugal love. The Lord can be loved in so many different ways. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach us how to relish loving the Lord in different ways and how to attain those relationships by chanting the holy. He established the Yoga Dharma. Now, the internal reasons are three, as given by Krishnadas Kaviraj. Uh, the first was that he wanted to relish the position of Srimati Radharani, that position that she is in and that she can enjoy the highest love of Krishna. He wanted to feel what it's like to be her in that loving relationship. Then he actually wanted to also experience the sweetness of himself because, well, as himself, he can't experience that sweetness. But in the mood of Srimati Radharani, basically being in her character, then he can taste his own sweetness, and that is sweetness that is unlimited. And the last reason, or one of the last reasons, is that he wanted to enjoy that highest bliss that only she can feel from love Krishna as deeply as she does. So, in order to feel this, he obviously took her color and her mood. But as we explained, association is so important for us to get into the understanding of things that are spiritual. So he found the like-minded souls that would join him in diving into this highest path of Srimati Radharani by having Lalita Devi and Vishaka Devi appear as his two associates, Ramananda Rai and Gaura Damodar Goswami. So some literature say that Swarup Damodar Goswami is Lalita Goswami. Some say, sorry, Lalita Saki. Some say that he is Vishaka Saki, and so vice versa with Ramananda Rai. Either way, they are both in this highest position as being Sakis of the Lord Sakis of Srimati Radharani Vrindavan. And so they are in the best position to help the Lord understand and appreciate the mood of Vipralamba Bhav. the highest expression of love for Krishna. So, in the later years of his manifest pastimes, after the Lord had established the Yuga Dharma, after he had taught the six Goswamis, and they went to Vrindavan to start writing about all his teachings and everything he had come to teach us about devotional service, and so he had established the external reasons for his appearance. Then he was now able to relish the internal reasons why he appeared, to, as we said, feel that wonderful love for Krishna that Srimati Radharani does and takes with all sweetness. And this he did with Swarup Damodar Goswami and Ramananda Rai. So this is, it's important that they who are present in those rasas were able to be present with him there. So they had joined him after their respective duties were completed, as we discussed. And his other confidential associates we discussed in previous classes, like Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Acharya, they were situated in different rasas. They were more in the fraternal rasas and parental rasas. So they would mostly remain preaching in Navadvip and join him at the Rath Yatra like other associates. So the most confidential of the associates stayed with him in Jagannath Puri, experiencing his deep ecstasies. So today we'll try and discuss these extraordinary personalities who are so dear to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we'll begin with Swarup Damodar Goswami. He was actually a resident of Navadvip, and it is said in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas, he actually went off that instead. So he was known before he took sannyas as Purushottam Acharya. He went to Varanasi and took sannyas from a sannyas guru named Caitanya Nanda. So Caitanya Nanda gave him an instruction to um, learn the Vedanta and to teach the Vedanta. So it's interesting that Swarup Damodar Goswami, he didn't take the dress of a sannyasi. He actually just gave up the Sikha and the Brahman thread. And so he took a brahmachari name rather, Swarup. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu added the name Damodar to this name because of his very extraordinary singing and musical abilities. So after he had fulfilled the instruction of his sannyas guru, his guru told him to go to Jagannath Puri. And this is where he met Lord Chaitanya again. So he stayed in a place called Satistan Math, which is near Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Bhajan Kutir, near the beach in Swargat Dwar. And he, at the time, had written a very wonderful verse that he submitted to the Lord. This verse has been preserved for all of us by Kavi Karna Purna as follows. Helod Punita Khedhaya Vishadhaya Tonmila Dhamadaro Shamya Shastra Vivadaya Rasadaya Chitar Pitonmadaya Shashvad Bhaktivinodaya Sa Madaya Maturya Mariataya Sri Chaitanya Dayanide Tavadaya Puyada Manto Daya. So it has very deep, beautiful meaning. O ocean of mercy, Sri Chaitanya, let that which easily drives away whatever pain we have been experiencing in this material world, that which is all purifying, that which manifests the greatest transcendental bliss, that which by its sunrise casts away all the doubtful conclusions of the Shastra, that which rains rasa on our hearts and minds, rules our consciousness and thus causes jubilation, that all liberating, all auspiciousness giving, the limit of Madhurya Rasa mercy of yours, let it rise within our hearts. So as soon as Swarup Damodar Goswami met Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after so long, this is the verse that he chooses to recite. So obviously he is making it clear that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's internal reasons, relishing of Madhurya Rasa, is something so special and extraordinary, and that he himself, Swarup Damodar Goswami, is there to help the Lord to relish this. These loving sentiments of Srimati Radharani Gopis, this were not discussed and shared like they were after the appearance of Lord Chaitanya before in our line. This is what makes the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya so unique. the experience of the other four rasas could be had and could be developed before, but there was not much that was discussed about Madhurya Rasa, because in order for someone to preach this, propagate it, then they would have to be experiencing it themselves. And this is, of course, what Lord Caitanya was doing, and what his beloved associates, Swarup Damodar Goswami and Srila Ramananda Rai, were doing. So this is what has allowed us who have come in the line afterwards, who may, um, after sincere and serious practice of devotional service, be able to come to this. This is our destiny in devotional service, to experience um, that relationship with Krishna. And we can do this now because of the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates who have brought this treasure to our understanding, something that wasn't there before the last years. So when Swarup Damodar Goswami came before the Lord the first time in Jagannath Puri, he paid his respects and the Lord embraced him, saying, "Today I saw in a dream that you were arriving here. Everything was just right. Just as one who is blind becomes happy getting eyes, so I have become happy upon getting you." So obviously we can understand the deep purport of this statement of the Lord, because Swarup Damodar Goswami would be his eyes experiencing this rasa that he is so desperate to experience, Madhurya Rasa. Sri Swarup Goswami said, "O Lord, please forgive me. Forgetting you, I deserted your lotus feet. Not having a trace of prema within me, I left your service, and being sinful, I went to a foreign land. But although I abandoned you, you didn't abandon me. By the ropes of your mercy, you have bound me by the neck and dragged me back to your lotus feet." So Swarup Damodar Goswami is explaining um, the foreign land, of course, is Varanasi, where he went to fulfill instructions of the Sannyas Guru. Hearing Swarup Damodar saying these words in great humility, the Lord again embraced him and said, "Sri Krishna is very kind. By his mercy, we have met once again." So about Swarup Damodar Goswami, Shri Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami says, Sri Swarup Damodar was the limit of scholarship. Still, he did not generally converse with anyone. He kept to himself. He liked to remain alone and did not see others. He was the very embodiment of Krishna Prema. He was like a second Mahaprabhu in the sense that he fully understood the Lord's conclusions on Krishna Tattva and Krishna Bhakti and could fully represent them. As such, whoever wanted to bring before the Lord a book, a poem, or song would first bring it to Swarup Damodar, who would examine it before the Lord would hear it. The Lord did not delight in hearing literature and song which was opposed to the conclusions of Bhakti, Bhakti Siddhanta Viruddha, or which contained rasabhas, conflicting devotional melodies. Therefore, Swarup Damodar would examine these things, and if he decided that they were pure, then he would arrange for the Lord to hear them. So we can understand from this that in the same way that Lord Chaitanya could only be approached by Swarup Damodar Goswami, and so that one would not risk displeasing him with some commentary that was unauthorized. So in the same way, we have to be careful about approaching the Lord without the mercy and instructions of his devotees. So people may argue that if we're all the eternal servants of the Lord, why do we have to go through someone else in order to approach him? And our understanding in that matter is that although we all are eternal servants of the Lord, we've been in contact with Maya so long that we're all actually essentially Maya conscious, practically 100%. And in order to approach Krishna, who is the diametric opposite of Maya, we have to be Krishna conscious, fully Krishna conscious. And we can't just go from being Maya conscious to Krishna conscious overnight just by hearing about Krishna once or just in the beginning of our devotional service. It takes a lot of practice. So in order for us to do that, we develop our Krishna consciousness under the association of someone who does Krishna, who knows how to please him. And then in that way, as we develop our Krishna consciousness, then we will understand more how to please the Lord intuitively, especially as we get to the highest stages of loving. But it's a very long way to get there. So in the beginning and of course even all the way up to the end, because even the great spiritual masters who may be manjaris, they're all serving Krishna under other manjaris, other sakis. So we always have to be taking instruction from a spiritual master, what to speak of in the very beginning of our spiritual life. So, in order to please Krishna, we go through those who know him best and who know how to guide us. So, this is what Swarup Damodar Goswami is doing. If a piece of literature was suitable in his um, loving mind, then he would present that to Lord Chaitanya for his pleasure. So in this way, Swarup Damodar Goswami always stayed near to the Lord, and he always knew the Lord's heart, especially when the Lord was relishing his very deep devotional moods of Srimati Radharani. Swarup Damodar knew exactly the right kirtan to sing for him to help him. And when he was in those very deep moods of separation from Krishna, then Swarup Damodar Goswami would sing the uh, songs of Jayadev Goswami, Chandidas, Vidyapati, who are um, very significant poets who wrote these deep devotional poems that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would relish in his moments. But again, how to enhance his moods was only known by Bharat Damodar Goswami and Ramananda Rai. It was not something ordinary to understand the mind, and to understand how he felt like when he was in this deep, deep ecstasies. So it said that because of his extraordinary singing, Swarup Damodar Goswami was like a Gandharva, and his deep understanding of Vedic scriptures, he was like Brihaspati. So he was a very extraordinary learned personality, was very talented as well in music. He wrote a book called Sangeeta Damodar as well, a book of music. So Lord Chaitanya had praised him as the storehouse of all devotional mellows. And because he was the witness of how Lord Chaitanya was experiencing all these mellows, he actually enabled all the rest of us to do so, because he recorded these activities of the Lord during these deep moods, and this became one of the important references for Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami when he was writing Chaitanya Charitamrita. So both at the day and night, Ramananda Rai and Swarup Damodar Goswami were with Lord Chaitanya, helping him to nourish his pastimes and experience this deep mellows of love for Krishna that Srimati Radharani has. Um, and so it is said that they are just 3.5 personalities who um, are closest to Lord Chaitanya of all his associates, and that one of them is Swarup Damodar Goswami. The others are Ramananda Rai, Sikhi Mahiti, and Madhvi Dasi. So, in addition, of course, to being so dearly loved by Lord Chaitanya, Swarup Damodar Goswami is very dear to Nityananda Prabhu and Advaitacharya and all the Vaishnavas. It's actually said that he was a guardian of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, that if Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had felt that some devotee had misbehaved, he would call Swarup Damodar Goswami and explain to him. Swarup Damodar Goswami would try and help the devotee earn his favor against the Lord. The Lord also entrusted the teaching and the spiritual nourishment of Raghunath Das Goswami to Swarup Damodar Goswami. And this has very important implications for us, because of his close association with Swarup Damodar Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami was able to learn from him about all these confidential pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And by memorizing these pastimes, Raghunath Das Goswami carried them with him to Vrindavan. And this is where Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was able to get the material for writing Chaitanya Charitamrita. And it's so essential that this happened, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. Sri Swarup Damodar Goswami wrote an outline in Sanskrit of Lord Chaitanya's latest activities. He had Raghunath Das Goswami memorize these verses and told him to preach them throughout the world. These verses were not written down anywhere else, however. The Chaitanya Charitamrita is the gist of Swarup Damodar's Karicha. So we need to understand that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to experience himself these deepest moods of Srimati Radharani that he could not experience at any other point in time. So something that was so precious to the Lord was only witnessed by Gaura Damodar Goswami, Ramananda Rai, these confidential associates. Without these memoirs of Swarup Damodar Goswami, none of us would be able to understand, or well, hope to understand in time, but at least to be aware of these moods, to be able to when we qualified, of course, to be able to read about them and to um, read about how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was experiencing Gita's Vipralamba Bhavs, what these ecstasies were like for him. So thanks to Raghunath Das Goswami, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was able to record these extraordinary pastimes of Chaitanya Charitamrita for generations of Vaishnavas like us to be able to come into contact with and relish. So his disappearance day is the second day of the full moon in the month of Asar, and his samadhi is the 64th samadhi area of Sri Vrindavan. So Srila Ramananda Rai, it said in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, the author of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, has described Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the ocean of transcendental knowledge, and Sri Ramananda Rai as the cloud which is produced from that ocean. Ramananda Rai was a greatly advanced scholar in devotional service, and by the grace of Lord Chaitanya, he gathered all transcendental conclusions, just as a cloud gathers water from the ocean. As clouds appear from the ocean and then go all over the world to distribute water, which then returns to the ocean, so by the grace of Lord Chaitanya, Ramananda Rai attained his higher knowledge of devotional service again and again after retiring from his higher knowledge of devotional service, and again after retiring from service, went to join Lord Chaitanya at Puri. So Lord Chaitanya's meeting with Ramananda Rai is so significant as well to our Gaudiya Vaishnava history. When Lord Chaitanya was leaving for his preaching tour in South India, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, one of his associates in Jagannath Puri, told him that if he wants to, that while he's traveling, if he can, he must meet this great personality, Ramananda Rai, because he said that his understanding of Madhurya Rasa, the Madhurya Rasa of Radha and Krishna, is unparalleled compared to anyone else. So Lord Chaitanya did meet Ramananda Rai on the banks of the Godavari River, but this meeting was also very significant because Ramananda Rai was at the time the governor of Madras and externally appeared to be in Shudra caste, which is generally not associated with by sannyasis. And Lord Chaitanya in particular did not associate with politicians or worldly men. So, although Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had kept his distance on seeing Ramananda Rai approaching, but in his heart he was experiencing great joy. And when Ramananda Rai came towards him, the Lord said, "My dear Ramananda, both you and I are madmen, and therefore we meet intimately on an equal level." The Lord considered this wonderful devotee equal, even though outwardly people were very surprised that the Lord was embracing him and receiving him with such affection, because they thought that Ramananda Rai was a fourth class person by their limited and foolish external understanding. They couldn't realize that these two transcendental personalities were not approaching each other in the way of ordinary persons. So the Lord told Ramananda Rai to rather meet him at night when other people were not around, so they would not judge their meeting and misunderstand their purposes. So Srila Prabhupada says again in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Chaitanya's special treatment of Ramananda Rai indicated that although Ramananda Rai was born in a non-Brahminical family, he was far, far advanced in spiritual knowledge and activity. Therefore, he was more respectable than one who simply happens to be born in a Brahminical family. Although Ramananda, out of his meek and gentle nature, considered himself to be born in a lower Shudra family, Lord Chaitanya nonetheless considered him to be situated in the highest transcendental stage of devotion. So these great personalities like Ramananda Rai and Haridas Thakur, like Srila Prabhupada said, were situated in the highest stages of devotional service, but they were obviously, by the will of the Lord, appearing in these apparently lower class families and apparently lower class families in order to demonstrate to us that pure devotees can appear in any way, shape, or form in any kind of family and in any part of the world. And so it is our duty to respect every devotee as a pure devotee. In the Nectar of Instruction, verse 6, it says, Dristai swabhava janiter vapusha shadosher na prakrit tattvam iha bhakta janasya pashyat ganga bhasam na khalu budbuddha feina pankir brahma dravatvam apagachati niradharmai. Translation is, being situated in his original Krishna conscious position, a pure devotee does not identify with the body. Such a devotee should not be seen from a materialistic point of view. Indeed, one should overlook a devotee's having a body born in a low family, a body with a bad complexion, a deformed body, or a diseased or infirm body. According to ordinary vision, such imperfections may seem prominent in the body of a pure devotee, but despite such seeming defects, the body of a pure devotee cannot be polluted. It is exactly like the waters of the Ganges, which sometimes during the rainy season are full of bubbles, foam, and mud. The Ganges waters do not become polluted. Those who are advanced in spiritual understanding will bathe in the Ganges without considering the condition of the water. So during their 10-day meeting in Vidyanagar, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Rai discussed basically all points of Krishna consciousness. And by the grace of the Lord, Ramananda Rai was able to answer all the Lord's questions in great detail. As we had mentioned before, this very important conversation that they had called Ramananda Sambhag, that established what is the highest goal of life. This is a very, very, very important conversation that all Gaudiya Vaishnavas should be aware of. This was how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could establish, basically for the first time in his incarnation, that this is what he had appeared for understanding and for relishing this highest love of Srimati Radharani. So when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Ramananda Rai how it is that he could attain this highest love of God, this love of the gopis, Ramananda Rai said, without adopting the mood, how to attain this highest love of God, which is, the love that Srimati Radharani has for Krishna. Ramananda Rai said, without adopting the mood of the gopis and following in their footsteps, one cannot enter the confidential pastimes of Radha and Krishna. There is no other way to attain the service of Radha and Krishna within the pleasure groves of Vrindavan. So, in this way, Ramananda Rai was actually the first person to reveal how Lord Chaitanya was desiring to enjoy these rasas. Like we said, this confidential reason for him to appear. And so, quite befittingly, after they had discussed all these wonderful topics, Lord Chaitanya revealed himself to be Radha and Krishna before Ramananda Rai, which caused him to faint in great ecstasy. So in time, Ramananda Rai left his government service and he went to Jagannath Puri in order to join Swarab Damodar Goswami in assisting the Lord in relishing the mellows of love for Krishna in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So like Swarab Damodar Goswami, Ramananda Rai was very expert in music, singing, in drama. He was a poet. He also wrote a book called Jagannath Pallav Nataka, I think. And together they were helping Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he was going through all his deep ecstasies in his residence, which is known as the Gambira. Sometimes the Lord would cry the whole night. He would escape the Gambira and he would be found passed out unconscious in deep love for Krishna. Or if they tried to lock him in, he would scratch his face against the walls until they bled. So deep were his ecstasies. So these two personalities had to be quite expert in being able to help the Lord during these moods and also to take care of him. And so just like Swarab Damodar Goswami, Ramananda Rai would expertly sing these songs of Vidyapati and Chandidas, and he would also speak as well. His great and wonderful understandings of the Vedic scriptures. So it is said also by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami that Lord Chaitanya was feeling such intense pains of separation from Krishna that only Ramananda talks about Krishna, and Swarab Damodar's sweet songs were what was keeping him alive. That's how deep this mood was for him. Then something else that was very special about Ramananda Rai, Lord Chaitanya once said, although I am in the renounced order of life, still my mind is sometimes disturbed even upon seeing a wooden form of a woman. But Ramananda Rai is greater than me, for he always remains undisturbed even when he touches a young woman. So this is an extraordinary level that only Ramananda Rai, he said, in this entire creation could do. But because he was such an accomplished dramatist, he would trained the young women who would dance for Lord Jagannath's pleasure in his rasa-laden dramas, those that he had composed. And so he was such a perfectionist in training them that he would actually dress them, he would bathe them, and he would massage them, but he was never at all ever disturbed by this. And so Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in admiration of his extraordinary renunciation as well. Upon meeting the father of Ramananda Rai, who's called Bhavananda Rai, Lord Chaitanya said, "Indeed, you are Pandu, and your 5 sons, Ramananda, Gopinath, Vaninath, Kalanidhi, and Sudanidhi, are the 5 Pandavas." So therefore, it's also said that Arjuna was also in this form of Ramananda Rai, along with either Lalita Devi or Vishaka Devi. So these things are a little difficult for us to understand, but on the transcendental platform, everything is possible. So with that, we're going to conclude the class for today. Thank you all for your kind attention in discussing these wonderful pastimes of the Lord and his confidential associates. We pray that they will help us all develop pure love for Lord Chaitanya's divine lotus feet and inspire us all in preaching his holy names across the world. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Are there any questions?
Hare Krishna. Sankashan Prabhu, welcome. Would you like to add something to the class, Prabhuji? Hare Krishna. Sankashan Prabhu, are you there?
Krishna.
Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
Thank you so much, Devi. You hear me?
Yes, you can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for the class. The one point you need to clarify again, Mataji, that we can't get to serve the Lord directly. Hare Krishna. Yeah,
Yes,
and we have to serve His servants. Can you just expand on that a little bit for us? Because I know it's like come even in the Bhagavad Gita, it says that we have to serve the devotees. Hare Krishna. Yeah, we have to serve the devotee of the Lord and not the Lord directly, because we're not pure enough to do that.
Yes, like what we were saying is that it is the devotee of the Lord that knows how to please the Lord. Especially when the beginning stages of our devotional service, we don't actually understand what it is that will please Krishna, and rather than try and understand it in our limited way and then cause offenses to the Lord, it's better that we try and understand through those who are very personally related to the Lord. So we're very fortunate in that since Lord Chaitanya's appearance, we've had so many wonderful Vaishnav writers who have been giving us all these literatures, like Srila Rupa Goswami in particular, but also the other Goswamis, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Prabhupada. All of them have written so much about how we can please the Lord. So by reading their literatures, that is the way that we are associating with them. And then we also have these days the personal association of devotees who know how to please the Lord. And these devotees can take many shapes and forms. They can be our spiritual masters. They can be our Shiksha Gurus, those that give us instruction. They can be any senior devotee or any devotee that we trust and we take advice and guidance from. So we have so many different avenues to learn about how to please Krishna, so that when we're performing our services, we won't be concocting anything or making up anything, and so we'll be able to please him directly. And then, of course, we know that Krishna is always more pleased when we approach him through his devotee, because it implies humility on our side. And Krishna himself, as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, has emphasized how much humility is important in chanting the holy name and so engaging in devotional service in his Shikshashtaka. So he appreciates our humility, and he also appreciates that we are glorifying those devotees that are helping him to attain him. Like Prahlad Maharaj says in the Bhagavatam, that he's in front of Lord Nrsingadev, but instead of only glorifying Lord Nrsingadev, he's glorifying his spiritual master Narada Muni. he's saying to Lord Nrsingadev that he has attained this transcendental position of being in front of the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself by the mercy of his spiritual master. And so he is emphasizing that without his spiritual master, he wouldn't have achieved this position. And he tells the Lord, my first duty is to serve him. He's telling the Supreme Lord that my first duty is to serve my Guru, not you. Because it's through the Guru that he achieves Krishna. And of course, we know that if we have that desire within our heart to have a Guru, to have the association of devotees, to understand Krishna, then Krishna gives us the Guru. So we get, it's a reciprocal relationship. We get Krishna through the Guru, the senior devotee, the spiritual master. In the same way, we get Krishna through the devotee and spiritual master. So there are two tracks that we must always run on. And so we have to always take the association of devotees, senior devotees, to understand how to please Krishna. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you very much, Mataji. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Shamina Mataji, is any questions on your side? Hare Krishna, welcome Mataji.
Sorry, Prabhu, nothing from me today. It was a lot to in, so no questions from me today.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Welcome to Sarad Sarijna Das. Prabhu, are you there now? Are you able to communicate? You can unmute Prabhu. Sarad Sarijna Das from India.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for being up so late. I know it's 10:30, almost 11 o'clock in India. Thank you. Was it okay for you, Prabhu? Any questions?
Yes. Okay, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Pranam.
Mataji, thank you for the wonderful class. Thank you for your time and dedication. We really appreciate your time in educating us.
Thank you for the service. It's all the mercy of Shikura and Shigaranga.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. So we'll just sing a sweet bhajan, glorification of the holy name. This is by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur by Gaura Madhusar. Gai Gaura Madhur Sware, Gai Gaura Madhur Sware. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gai Gaura Madhur Sware, Gai Gaura Madhur Sware. Grihe taku vane taku, Sada Hari Bhole taku. Grihe taku vane taku, Sada Hari Bhole taku. Sukhe dukhe bholo naku, Vadane Hari Nam Guru re. Gai Gaura Madhur Sware, Gai Gaura Madhur Sware. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gai Gaura Madhur Sware, Gai Gaura Madhur Sware. Maya Jale Badha Hoye, Acho Miche Kash Loye. Maya Jale Badha Hoye, Acho Miche Kash Loye. Ek hono Chaitanya pe, Radha Madhava Nam bolo re. Gai Gaura Madhur Sware, Gai Gaura Madhur Sware. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gai Gaura Madhur Sware, Gai Gaura Madhur Sware. Jivana hoila hushesh, na bhajile rishikesh. Jivana hoila hushesh, na bhajile rishikesh. Bhakti vinod padesh, ek bar namra se matore. Gai Gaura Madhur Sware, Gai Gaura Madhur Sware. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gai Gaura Madhur Sware, Gai Gaura Madhur Sware. Must apologize about the cartels. I haven't actually sung this song before with it. So we'll read the translation. Lord Gaurasundar sings in a very sweet voice. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Whether you're a householder or a sannyasi, constantly chant Hari Hari. Do not forget this chanting, whether you are in a happy condition or a distressful one. Just fill your lips with the Hari Nam. You are bound up in the network of Maya and are forced to toil fruitlessly. Now you have obtained full consciousness in the human form of life, so chant the names of Radha Madhav. Your life may end at any moment, and you have not served the Lord of the senses, Rishikesh. Take this advice of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Just once, relish the nectar of the holy name. Shri Harinam Prabhu Ki Jai. So again, thank you all so much for kindly paying attention and for allowing me the opportunity to also relish these pastimes by reading up about them. Again, we pray that the mercy of these great Vaishnavas will be on all of us. May all of you take care and have a good night. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.